possibly, I don't know, maybe your kid is a one-off because most of us have the experience that you had with your grandfather. You knew your grandfather didn't play, and you didn't cross that line. There are some that just can take the beating or the whipping or spanking, and they just off the
But
chain.
my son ain't. He not a one-off, brother. This is what we dealing with now.
Not you
It's
just said
a
it.
huge issue.
Most of us grew up with your grandfather, and that was the line. That.
Oh, I'm not. But I'm not. I'm talking about him right now. His generation.
Yeah.
That's the difference, not me.
Yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Okay.
I'm with you on that point.
I think it's
but
because
I'm saying that what's even asking myself, and not just talking about my son, but just whole generation, what is missing that they feel that comfortable? I'll give you an example. Me and my wife were walking in the neighborhood the other day and just passed a bunch of kids getting off the school bus. My wife was like, how did your day go? Oh, how was school? Just being friendly. And one of the kids just blatantly like, I got raped today. And everybody thought that was funny. And I told my wife, I was just like, now, with us coming up, would we have ever said anything like that jokingly to another adult? Of course, my wife didn't go there because they ended up running off and all this other stuff. But I'm just like, what made this kid think that was cool to say to another adult? What happened? Cursing. How many of y'all experienced, just cursing blatantly with grandmothers right there and, great grandparents and older adults? It's like, it's no filter for this generation.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I think, and that, once again, it goes back to society we are in today has different standards.
Yes.
And unfortunately, Mike Tomlin for the Pittsburgh Steelers, right, in the locker room, it says the standard is the standard.
Yes.
Right? And I think, if you look at the generational transference of data and how we absorb information, kids now have all these smart devices. They have all these other influences that we didn't have. And because you see something on TV or you see something on social media, you want to, perpetuate or be a part of that. And you see somebody else doing it, so now it's cool for you to do it. There's a lot of that as well. People are motivated, in my opinion, by two things, right? The carrot or the stick.
Yeah.
And to Maya's point, it's the stick, right? I'm more of the carrot person, right? So which means, rewarding good behavior, motivating good behavior. My son right now is 12. He didn't do something we wanted him to do a couple weeks ago, so I took away all his video games, right? So now today is going to be the first day he's getting back his video game after 2 weeks, right? So, and he understands the importance of right or wrong. We try to have those conversations. But to your point, I'm the youngest of three boys. I'm different than my two older brothers. And same household, same
Correct.
parents, same standards, same DNA to a large degree, but we act and react differently to different things. So it's not that my parents did anything differently with my two brothers than they did with me. It's just that, how we interpret and how we do things are uniquely different. So it's not always a reflection of the parent, to your point, or to the household. There are environmental factors as well that we have to kind of take into account. But it all, to me, somehow in the last 25 or 30 years, kids have gotten more emboldened. You have kids calling cops on the parents now, right, and reporting the parents for child abuse if the child, is getting disciplined in a certain way. Right. So you have to account for all that as well. I mean, I would never call 911 on my mom when I was 12 years old.
Well, you might need it.
Yeah. I mean,
Divorcing your parents.
Yeah, divorcing my parents at 16 years old when I move out and be an emancipated minor or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, it was a culture of inclusiveness. I've been in my neighborhood 13 years.
Okay.
My neighbor two doors down don't know his name.
Yes.
I mean, that's part of the problem.
Yes.
I mean, I grew up in a neighborhood, small town, where everybody knew me. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew my brothers. If I messed up at the grocery store,
accountability all around.
if I messed up at the grocery store, by the time I got home, Mama already knew about it. And we don't have.
So,
that
Lamont, do you
culture
think we're
anymore.
nosy enough with our children?
Good evening. Welcome to Higher Definition, where we were just talking about beating your kids, keeping them on the right track. If you don't beat them, you don't love them. That's what it sounds like, Marlon. That's what it sounds like we were talking about.
Hey, like I tell my kids, man, if you ain't been grabbed by the arm and whooped in a circle, you ain't a productive citizen in my book, man. So I'll just leave it at that, brother.
As like Celie told Sophia. No, yeah, I know. She told what she told Hoppo?
Oppo.
You told Hoppo to beat me.
Yep.
Man, we are starting off the right way. Want to welcome everyone to Higher Definition Radio. And while I'm on this thought, Everett brought up a good point. When the last time have you saw a kid disciplined in the store? Like,
That is a moment.
man, used to be mama carried a switch, especially for the store. And you know, when you saw someone else's kid get hit, you just mind your business and be like, gave him the nod.
I think the problem is, Lamont, is, people now, they'll call a 1-800 number on you, you know what I'm saying, for doing anything. I remember a many day, it wasn't even my grandma ain't have to do it. My Aunt Patricia, I remember one time playing in the clothes rack at the Rock Hill Mall. My grandma told me a couple of times, stop playing in the clothes rack. You know, you would go inside the clothes rack and hide in the clothes. That's when they had the little circle thing revolving. I remember coming out that joke getting punched in the chest and couldn't even catch my breath. And guess what?
He said punched in the chest.
Guess what?
Nobody's
I wouldn't play. But, and then people looking at them like, oh, my God, but wasn't nobody calling no phone numbers. And look at me today.
You got knocked all up in between the kids and women's section.
Yeah. Got extra large stuck to my forehead.
He said punched in the chest.
It is a different times. When the things that my daughters watch, they're 12 and 10. There's even jokes with the YouTubers about the little sketches have sketches in there about calling Child Protective Services.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think that's where the kids get a lot of that stuff from, but they do bring it up even at school. We're mandatory reporters, so different times.
Yeah,
it really is.
Let me recenter. Go ahead. Let me recenter. So, welcome to Higher Definition Radio. We didn't start talking before we didn't introduce. We didn't did anything.
You started it, Lamont.
Man, we talking about beating kids. I had to say, whoa, we really talking about just beating kids and the joy of that? I had to rethink what we were sitting on that couch talking about.
I'm real passionate about that subject.
Yes, we ain't disciplined hard enough. Whoa. So, I want to say good evening, everyone. We have not even special guests, and let me recenter us. And Marlon, thank you for not finding the robbery to come sit at Union Baptist Church today and take part in eating and laughing and all the other craziness we have going on.
Yeah, I enjoyed my time. I didn't even have any idea that y'all revival was going on, so it was awesome, man.
And I didn't get an invite.
Al, you always busy.
And Al, I actually invited myself. So I told Lamont, I asked him for his address. I said, we want to visit your church, and we came through, man. And like I said, I had no idea all that was going on. So it's almost like the timing was meant to be, So.
Dr. Houston, you hear Al in there anywhere?
I didn't, nor did I hear Dr. Houston. So.
Right. So
Yeah.
I mean,
But to answer your question, Lamont, I had a pretty good week. I'm thankful for this week. I'll let Al and Dr. Houston go ahead and settle while I talk. But yeah, definitely enjoyed the service, man, and definitely looking forward to a good show tonight. I was telling Lamont even prior to the show, and Al, a lot of nostalgia today as far as the old school things that I was used to coming up in church. The hymn choir. I'm of that era where when the lead sing get up and put their finger in his ear is on and popping. You know what I'm saying? So, mothers of the church wearing the hats and things like that. The tambourine. I mean, just it's just old school, man, and I really like that. I've seen we've gotten away from those things in a lot of spaces, I would say, and sometimes we can get so modernized that we kind of forget the basics of church, man. So it really brought back some great memories.
Yeah. Did you get some chicken?
Yes, sir. And it was good too, Al. Smothered in gravy.
Did you see any white shoes?
You better.
Yeah. Saw several white shoes.
Yeah, okay.
And the ushers were awesome. Now I can't, what I'm saying? They was on point. Got my little visitor bag and got welcome. Somebody hugged me coming into the church. I mean, they got this stuff together, man. I can't hate on Union, man. They got it together.
Listen, Marlon, you probably even noticed the flowers are up near the pulpit. They spent 2 hours getting them flowers right yesterday. The church mothers They kept looking at them. They changed out the vases. They cut
Old
pieces from
school,
them.
man.
Old school, but they wanted it to be right. And I do a lot of laughing, even though Union Baptist Church has a lot of closet watchers of higher definition.
Yeah.
I want to say that I'm proud of our church because people go to the church, feel like that's a part of their house. Like they wasn't gonna let nothing be out of order. Folks was wiping windows down yesterday. They were vacuuming.
That's my point. Old school, man. It's old school, man. And like I said, Pastor brought a word, so it was really nice, Lamont. We enjoyed ourselves, me and the wife.
And then I'll recenter us with Al Board. For a lot of people on our modern platform don't know who Al Board is, but Al Board is original for higher definition. He held us down when we were in the studio for many, many years. And when I moved to Ohio, Al was keeping the ship moving for higher definition. It has taken us this long to fit into his schedule to get him on. But Al is a regular part. So, Mr. Board, how have you been for the last 8-9 years? You know,
I like a little bit of shade here, Al.
Yeah, it's a lot of trees in that forest. It sounds like. I've been peeping my head in here and there, man. So I haven't been all the way away, but I've been good, I eat chicken too, and I still like going to church. So I mean, revival and homecomings and stuff like that. So that part about me hadn't changed, But yeah, it's good to be, back in the there go CT Kirk again talking about the snowing on my face. I got you, Kirk. I got you. But yeah, it's good to be back in the number again.
Oh yeah.
No, and we thank you, Al, for all you've done for high definition platform. Even though people don't see you on camera with high definition, you are still part of us, and our thread we have, you are a part of it. Yeah. And we share jokes and laughs and make sure we're right on point and get topic ideas from different conversations we have during the week. So we thank you greatly. And then the good thing about Union today, we were packed out. So when you came today and we cut the air on early, so nobody had the fan. I saw one person fan and I was mad. Like, man, it's 69 here. I got that air crunked down to 69 and you in here fanning, you just showing out. It's always one. Because I went down personally and was messing with the air this morning. And there's one person fan. I say, look at this mess here.
One person fan. And was my wife there?
Yeah, some people have to have it 64 or less. So I know a few people like that.
Yeah, I'd have been shining probably.
Yeah. Dr. Houston, how are you, ma'am? And we don't invite you to Union because you wear sandals to church. And I don't want you to get ran out of Union Baptist Church for having sandals on.
I've been invited to Union Baptist, and I enjoyed myself there. And I'm sure I will be invited back, even if it's not by you. So,
Dr. Houston. How have you been overall, man?
Things have been going well. I actually went to Black Rock Baptist Church today to speak to their youth and parents. We talked about kingdom parenting and Christ versus culture. So it was a blessing to be there, to be amongst them. We had a great time and things are going well. Can't complain. We had a great start to the school year.
No, that is great and outstanding. And again, we want to welcome everyone. I see a lot of pastors and ministers that are watching and joining and chiming in. Want to thank you for all the work you do out in the community, for keeping the body of Christ whole, for leading the flock. I know there's probably a lot of tough days in leading churches and managing church affairs, but I want to say thank you from Higher Definition. And Pastor Ed, yes, Jesus wore sandals, but we didn't move past it. He had a robe on too. We ain't come to church in a robe either. So let's not get too far with this now. And I've been on this campaign, especially since Vice President Harris. I know we're finna have all these sneaker balls, and we need to stop it. And that's my personal campaign. Like, women, if you don't trust your ankles, we can't trust you either. So we need to get back into heels, walking around the church. We need to hear some clapping. And men, you need to have them hard bottom shoes on. Marlon, without the hard bottom shoes, when the hymn choir going off, they don't even hear nothing. All they hear is squeaking.
Yeah,
Like
you
on
can't
a
keep the
basketball.
beat. You're right.
Can't stomp unless you got some Stacey Adams on.
Stacey Adams, hard bottoms.
There you go. Them good old Stacy's.
I'm glad everyone's smiling. Dr. Houston actually brought up my first topic. We're talking about current events tonight, talking about things that are going on in our world, and we have to stay informed and recenter ourselves. I am amazed how many people don't follow what's going on day to day, or week to week, or month to month. Everything comes as a surprise. There's someone out there that don't know Joe Biden decided not to run and Kamala Harris. There's some people out there somewhere like, what? I can't believe that happened. But I want to ask Dr. Houston about, we didn't start at school in the state of education right now. And I'll go around to Al and Marlon too, but I want to start with you, Dr. Houston, since you directly touched that, to talk about the state of education right now.
Well, the state of education in South Carolina, I'll speak to that specifically. Right now, what's in legislation is that they're planning to ban cell phones. So the legislation is in. It won't actually pass until January. So that is something that's going to try to help cut down on disruptions and children being distracted in the classrooms. And there's been like a lot of YouTube videos nationally where you'll see cell phones being taken, and then children becoming violent in some instances, very disrespectful. So the hope is to get things centered back to a focus on instruction and not the distractions. But everything's pretty much the same as it was, last year, as far as curriculum and instruction is concerned.
And Dr. Houston, Al just brought up something important, the removal of cell phones. And I'm going to ground everyone to the area we grew up in, going to Castle Heights. Back in the day, if you wanted to fight someone at Castle Heights Middle School, you would say, meet me at the bread box. Directly across the road from Castle Heights, and you would fight over there. That's where you conducted your fight business. That was well known. And Everett brought up a point, Al, when we went to school, you fought, you won some, you lost some. Can you imagine in today's time if your fight and you took a loss from in the school was with you the rest of your life? Or what do you think about that?
I could not imagine some of those bread box fights, being broadcast on YouTube or Instagram or Snapchat. I just can't imagine, because you think about not just the whole bullying thing, but how kids today, like you said, that is going to follow you. I mean, you're teased about things that wasn't broadcast to millions of people, back then. But when somebody can just pull it up on the phone, and send it to everybody, and just, go live while you getting drugged across the parking lot, or they're going live, and you the one with rocks and gravel and dirt in your hair and everything, and you lost the fight, but you didn't just lose the fight, you got humiliated. So it goes to a grander issue, with the mental stability of the kids too. A lot of times we see a lot of social media posts with like Dr. Houston was pointing out about, like distractions in class, kids misbehaving, the whole classroom, is disrupted now because of a kid misbehaving and things like that. On the flip side of it, we've seen where, there's been some teachers that have been fired or arrested or whatever because of physical altercations with students and everything. But I believe that it's more of a distraction than anything else. Now, going back to my experiences as a student, I've caused some disruptions, but it's not on social media. So, I mean, it was on my school record, but I mean, it's not on social media. Millions of people didn't know about it.
And I know we have a lot of pastors watching. I think Pastor C.T. Kurt, if he's still watching, I'm just curious the thoughts of cell phone banning in schools. Is it a plus? And I know for adults we're gonna say ban cell phones, but there are some practical uses for cell phones. Do I think also it can be taken a little far that you're trying to hold discipline to someone that's mind is not fully developed yet? Yes. Marlon, I know you didn't get into any scuffles in school, but cell phones, man, can you imagine having a fight recorded and 30 years, your 30-year class reunion, they replaying that fight that you put the L in?
Hey, I'm with Al, man, but I had a few close scuffles, but yeah, I wasn't rumbling like you and Al, at the bread box or whatever y'all call it. I'm not even familiar with that. I was in talent shows singing, you know what I'm saying, while y'all was scuffling. So I'll put it that way. But I can say that even Al and I can sit around and talk about memories of high school and things that happened and embarrassing moments, proud moments and stuff like that. And some of those I wouldn't want to relive. I don't know if Al recall, we saw one of our close friends get knocked out at a pep rally. Somebody was fighting, you know what I'm saying? Al may not remember who I'm talking about.
Oh, I do.
I'll never say the name, but even for that to be recorded and that person, we talk about it to this day. And then, back then, if that was the case where somebody was able to record that and you could never live that down. And then, Lamont, we're also in a generation where you talk about, no one helps anyone anymore. Everyone, if you're in any type of distress, somebody just pulling out their phones, whether in school, whether in, the public, any of that. It's just like, it's no one has, everyone's intention is to get likes for their particular need and at the expense of that other individual. And for me, even talking about what Dr. Houston stated, as far as, taking phones out of school, I think I don't think that'll ever happen 100%. I think it'll be just like you're talking about taking phones out of the prison system. Now, you'll have some way they're still going to get it in there, regardless of what you say, because the stronghold, and let's face it, it is a stronghold with these cell phones, and I struggle with it myself. So, even to be sitting down, the next thing you done pick your phone up, you put it back down, now you done picked it back up again. I mean, it's real, man. So I think these kids will definitely struggle, with that being taken away from them. I do agree that it should cut down on distractions, but to me, they may end up seeing the opposite of that, because it's almost just like someone trying to just stop smoking. It's easier said than done.
And I don't think that it's not that they won't be able to bring them to school. I
Okay.
think we may have places for them to keep them while
Instead of
they're
the
at
classroom.
school, because there are children who will need them when they go home in the afternoons if their parents aren't there or something, or, for
Right.
the bus ride home. So I think they'll just be put away while they're at school. But you all are right with the things that are being recorded, because that's one of the first questions they ask if they're in a fight. Who got the recording? Let me see it. And it's just like, what is wrong? And I would try to always teach them that basically this is like an enslavement mentality. People used to, when they owned slaves, they would use this type of thing for entertainment. So what you all are doing is the same type of thing, that you're doing that to each other, and this is just sheer ignorance. And I would try to stop them from doing those types of things by teaching them where this actually started from. This is not how we handle things.
Right.
No, you bring up an excellent point, and I'm just imagining our worst moments being caught on video that we can never escape. That should make a lot of us cringe. Um, your very worst moment, and Al and you and Marlon, you guys are professional singers. One half of M-Phase, national recording artist group. Could you imagine on your slips and mess ups that's out there for people to see forever? Can you imagine that, Al?
No.
Woo.
I'm thinking about one particular occasion.
Oh man.
No, I'm Rochester. I fell up the steps going to the stage. I fell up the stage, but and I'm glad that that video didn't, cause our road manager was taping that particular show. But I would, there's a whole lot of things, a whole lot of instances where, if there was a camera, or if there was not just a camera, if there was some type of social media that you were able to upload it to, and more people were able to see it. Actually, me and the guys talked about this the other week, right, Mom?
Mm-hmm.
About how things would have changed. People would look at you differently. Some things need to be private because it's bad enough. It was bad enough for us back then that one of our A&R guys would always say all press is good press. That's not necessarily true. He used to say, as long as people are talking about you, that's what you want. No, that's not true, and we see that to even more today when the least little thing gets out. It's a 10-second clip can change your whole career. It can make or ruin your career. So I'm just glad and thankful that we came up during the era that we did before technology and all of that, social media and all of that stuff. So I just can't imagine our worst moments, because you think about a snapshot, 5-10 seconds of that's being posted, or maybe even at the most 30 seconds being posted to social media. That's a snapshot of what could have been a 2-hour occasion. But there's one little snapshot that's got millions of people forming an opinion based off that snapshot. And I just can't imagine my worst moments being broadcast like that.
And even piggybacking on that, Lamont, we talk about, singing, and even back in the day, going back and listening just to the audio, don't even look at the video. And Al know what I'm talking about. You may hear somebody, got excited that night and they note went from A to a Z that ain't even in the musical vocabulary. We're like, what the heck was that? And for that, to be captured, and for us to probably have to live that over. Oh, y'all supposed to be this, a cappella group. Y'all supposed to be able to sing in key all these times. I mean, we had some rough nights starting out as we were forming, Stormin, Foreman, and Norman as a group.
Okay.
The ups and downs, the arguments, the long van rides, things that happen inside of the van. I mean, those things, like Al said, we protect your house, but we're not of a generation now that worries about protecting the house. You got some people that expose their own home just to get likes. So it's just a different generation. And back to your point, Lamont, for those things, and Al can tell you, we would act silly on, this was when the VHS cassette tapes was out with the little video cameras and stuff like that. We would record stuff and be silly on that, but thank God that's lost. You know what I'm saying? So but social media goes nowhere. I'll put it that way.
And Dr. Houston, some of the toughest teachers were Black teachers, in my opinion. So, what if a video out there of you snatching up a little kid's arm or pinching up? That's how Black teachers used to get down back in the day. Like, you did not, if you were Black, you did not want a Black teacher because they, be the main one showing out here in these streets, grabbing your arm, lifting up. There ain't no video of you doing nothing like that, is it, Dr. Houston?
No, there's no videos of me inappropriately grabbing any children. But now, I do think on the flip side of that, I always would tell children too, though, we also have to learn how to laugh at ourselves. We have to learn how to have a sense of humor. We got to learn how to make sure that people don't have control over you with things, to hold things over your head. Because even if people are saying things, you control whether it's impacting you or not. Now, I know for children, that's a whole lot different thing where they think their whole world revolves around their friends and school. And for adults, we have rationing skills. So I think we just have to use the moments and use them as teachable moments, teach them about how people are losing their scholarships over things like inappropriate posts on Facebook, and just how to use social media for things that are beneficial instead of harmful.
And I want to thank Latoya Thompson for this comment. But I want to disagree for a second. I think, especially as men, whose primary instinct is to defend and protect, if we teach our young men not to fight, period, you weaken them. And I'll go to Marlon on that. Do you think I'm right? Not that there's a right or wrong answer, but do you understand where I'm coming from, Marlon?
Yeah, it's honestly it's kind of double-edged sword because it's particularly now in the school environment. When you defend yourself, you get suspended right along with that individual. But what male wants to run to a office and say he trying to fight me? So it's really a double-edged sword for a man, Lamont, when you think about that, a young boy whose mind is developing, and maybe someone's trying pressuring him in front of his peers, and it's just like we can't say what we would do in that particular situation. So to tell them if they don't fight, it could make them look weak, and they still have the developing mind. I think it comes to a point where they should come into where you can pick and choose your own battles, but then some moments you just never know what you would do in those particular moments if you're pushed that way. I mean, I've been in peer pressure moments and as a youth, and have done some things that I didn't think I would do because of that peer pressure. So I think as a man's man, yeah, that statement, if you don't fight, you can make yourself look weak, but at the same time, you have some children and young adults that have fought and made that decision and ended up in jail for life, for not intentionally hurting or killing someone, from that particular situation. Because you got to think these children have some have some built up stress. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes that can be taken out on the wrong individual. So I would say it's good advice till it's not good advice, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm sorry. Can I comment on that?
It's just like the women. I always want to jump in when the man trying to talk. Go ahead, Dr. Houston. Go ahead.
No, because that has actually happened with students. So they'll come in and, somebody, they're trying to do the right thing, but then they also telling me, but I can't let him punk me, Miss Houston. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You can't, because, it's going to be hard for you out here, and I ain't going to be able to walk around the school with you. So I would try to give them, realistic solutions. Like if they were coming to report something, I would never say, yeah, so-and-so just came and they call it snitched on you.
Oh,
I
yeah.
always use the teacher's name. I'm going to say this teacher told me, or I heard it from over here. So, I'll sneak them out some kind of way where nobody saw them coming in. But, I knew that they had to save face in front of their peers, and that it couldn't appear like they were backing down. And I would also get on teachers too to let them know children really don't want to fight. They're looking around waiting for you to intervene. And some of y'all standing in here like you scared. And, I'm a woman. I done broke up fights when I'm pregnant. So if these children are doing something, just intervene, say something. They don't really want to fight. They're waiting for somebody to grab them, but they don't want to look like they're afraid. So, we got to make sure we are creating safe spaces for children at the school as adults.
No, you bring up a very good educational point, and that is excellent advice for teachers, that you have to help these students save face also. I know that sounds so petty, but you have to. And Al, I know you were raised old school, and the way I was raised is, well, not only raised, I saw it in action. That if you let someone pick on you, the bully is not going to stop picking on you until you stand up for yourself. You're going to be that person for quite a while. And I know some people, even as adults, that we have never forgotten that such and such used to jump on you all the time or push you over. So Al, how do you square those two?
I have two different examples, because I was definitely raised in the mindset of you have to stand up for yourself. You have to sometimes make an example. One is my second day of school. We were talking about Castle Heights. Second day of school, a guy kept, putting his hand in my face, kept, mushing me, and this was actually in class.
Mushing. I ain't heard that in a while.
Yeah, and all of that. And, with that same mentality, I'm like, because I knew if I don't stand up for myself, it's just going to keep happening. It's going to keep happening today. It's going to keep happening tomorrow. It's going to happen the next week, and not only that, my friends looking at me, that whole pressure of it all. So needless to say, we got in a fight. We got suspended, blah, blah, blah. But then another instance, this is this is even long after high school, where I did ignore the guy, but I made the mistake of turning away from him, and it actually escalated, and the dude punched me in the ear,
Mm.
and he had to go down for that. But I mean, I'm just saying,
Mm.
it's just sometimes you just really have to know how far you want to go, how far you willing to take it. But like Dr. Houston said, the kids today, they just really don't want to fight. I mean, I know when we were coming up, there's a lot of us just wanted to fight. I mean, because
Lamont,
there was one neighborhood bully. He and I fought all the time because I was a bully's worst nightmare. Because if you wanted to fight, I was gonna fight. Because I was taught you gotta defend yourself. You gotta stand up for yourself. You can't let them keep coming back, pushing you around. Because they you give them an inch, they're gonna take a mile. You give them a mile, they want a whole marathon. So you have to stand your ground at some point. I'm not trying to do the stand your ground, law thing, but you have to stand your ground. Not only, when it comes, because if you learn that at an early age, it'll help you on later on in life.
Let me make sure my mom is watching before I comment. Hold on, Dr. Houston. I'm on limited time. My mom will be watching shortly. No, I'm telling you, I'm the youngest of three, and I have two older sisters. No one was rescuing me. No one, So I needed to rescue myself and put a line down to say, hey, we're not going to do this anytime. Because then you have to tell people anytime, any place. And I know that sounds harsh, but that's the world that some kids that I'm sure, Dr. Houston, that go to school at your schools live in, that the bully is just not going to stop. It don't work that way in life. And even on the job, some people get bullied on the job. There is no way. I can't even imagine somebody bullying me on my job. Like it ain't even going to happen like that. But go ahead, Dr. Houston.
I was just going to say, in most cases, it's not true instances of bullying in school anymore. What we have a lot of times is conflict, because bullying is something that's like ongoing. We find that very far and few in between. And most of the time with the children, they don't know how to respond. Like, you can't be bullied if you got something to say. So some of my time in my office would be helping them come up with something to say. And some of them I have to tell them, wait a minute now, you're not about that life. You can't say that you're gonna get beat up and I might not be there. So you can't go too far with them. That's crossing the line. But if you're teaching them how to deal with conflict, because I wanted them to learn how to stand up for themselves, because I knew that the people weren't going to stop if they never did, but not get into a fight. So most of the time it would work where they would kind of like, get the person off of them. But most of it is just teaching children how to deal with conflict. The other thing with teachers is that we've got to build community in the classrooms. It's more than just coming in to learn. You're building a community in your classroom. So as a teacher, it's certain things that are not going to happen while you in my room with my name on the outside of the door. You're not going to pick at people. You're not going to talk bad about your peers. You're not going to drag people down. And we've got to do a better job as educators, as making sure that we build those communities on the front end in our classrooms, and not just letting it be, oh, well, I'm just here to teach. It's got to be more than that.
And Lamont, I think the scary part too for this generation, and Al can probably attest to, back in the day, you lose a fight, you might shake hands, it's over. Unfortunately, with this generation, you lose, it's not over in a lot of cases, and it could end in gunplay and whatever else like that. So it's like, this isn't really a truly fighting generation per se. I know fights happen, and I've made it a point to never share that crap on social media. I would hate when I would see people sharing fights of, people acting a straight fool. We talked about, Lamont, you remember I was telling you about at the Jamboree or whatever they call it now, the District 3. I think they renamed it or whatever, but we call it the Jamboree. And they were talking about, how many different fights broke out during, that event this past Friday. And, families having to leave, people throwing soda bottles, just all type of particular fights across the actual stadium. And I'm just like, I was telling my wife, I was just like, we never experienced anything like that. Now, maybe been a minor scuffle back in the day, but multiple fights and families having to leave. I was just like, what happened, you know? But I said all of that to say is that, you know, I think social media perpetuates, if you in that fight, you lose that fight. That fight is recorded. You continually have to live through that. Now that hate and anger is continuing to build up because God knows how many people have laughed at you, picked on you, and you continually have to maybe see this individual. That creates for a dangerous storm.
And for the people that's watching, Joanne, I want to say thank you for watching Higher Definition as we discuss current events and we talk about the cell phone policy. And this is going to be a little off topic, but on topic. And I'll start with you, Al. How do we arm our youth with the word? Like, to calm their spirit, to calm their mind, because everyone ain't sitting on the right. Everyone ain't going to Union Baptist Church and hearing hymns on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Everyone is just not working that way. How do we arm our youth with the word?
First of all, we got to know the word ourselves. We have to know the word ourselves to be able to make it relatable to them. Because if it's not relatable to them, and they can't, they can't translate what Paul is saying to what they just dealt with at school. We have to know to be able to translate it and make it relatable to them. So I heard the phrase the other day, too many of us are Bible illiterate. We hear scriptures, we're familiar with certain scriptures, but we don't really know the word. We don't know the meaning of it. We don't know context. We don't know application. So we have to know the word ourselves before we can actually share it with anybody, let alone an adolescent, with that doesn't have a fully developed frontal lobe. So, I mean, we gotta know what it says ourselves so we can actually, make it relatable to somebody else.
Marlon, how do we, you got kids, how do you arm them with the word to get them through? And I know your kids are a little older now, but man, this is a rough world out here. If you watch the news on any given day, you would think the world's about to end tomorrow. Any moment. How do you arm them with the word to make it through that day?
I mean, I agree with a lot of the points Al stated. I totally agree. It starts at home. And a lot of things, even that's related to Christianity, as y'all know, been removed from school. So it's like they don't even see any remnants of, prayer in school, pledge allegiance. I remember going to school and things like that. But I think it has to start at home, Lamont. And is it an easy task, for, say you're soon to be adult child getting a conflict and you're asking them to, speak a word over themselves in that particular situation, as like Al said, their brain is still developing. No, it may not be easy, but I still don't think that's being done enough. I think the issue is as well is that we allow the internet, to educate our children. You look at a lot of places now, man. I mean, look at all this, and even starting with smaller children. Even looking in a church today, and I get it. You don't want children to disrupt church and talk and stuff like that. But how many times you see where parents have given the kids a headphone, the iPad, and that pretty much kind of babysits them. And these kids at 6, 7 years old know how to swipe, know how to search for YouTube, know how to, just really confident with that navigation. And who knows what they are swiping to or listening to. So for me, I think we need to even cut that down. The time that you're allowing them to be on those things should be the time spent with you as family, from a young age on up. So by the time they get into school, they already developed to know, hey, you're going to have this conflict. This is going to come up. These are some words that you can go to in the Bible. These are some verses that you can go to put on that armor of God to make sure that you're good. But to me, it's a lot of work. And I think, with this society now, parents, trying to work, keep the roof over the house, just get kind of caught up in that chasing money thing to where sometimes the family time can go astray.
Dr. Houston, you in the fray of this. As a Christian, a person that's faith-based, how do you subtly or unsubtly arm your students with the word?
Well, one way at school, I always ask them, do you go to church? Now, this is my 23rd what, 25th year in education. So some time ago, the answer to that question used to readily be yes, frequently. And because I work in the area that I'm from, I could even say, well, what church? You know, and half the time I would know who the pastor was or what have you. And from there, I could have a conversation. Well, what would your pastor say about this? Or, you know, what are they teaching you at church about this? Because if they go to church, I can ask them questions about that. But lately, the answer to that question a lot is no. You know, a lot of children are not being taken to church because we have a generation now who believes that, you know, going to church is not something that's required. So it gets a little bit more difficult in that vein. But with my own children, I have chosen a church that makes the children's ministry is a very big part of the church. So I serve in the children's ministry. We have classes that are relevant to the children started in preschool. And even though preschool children are not my people, I have to rededicate my life back to Christ every fourth Sunday. They That's the group that I work with because nobody wants to work with the preschool children. So I stay with them you know, for the duration. But my children are in the middle school ministry. Bella's in the 5th grade ministry. So it's divided by grade levels, and then they move up with their grade as they do in school every year. But it's very relevant to them. They are having a camp soon to teach them how to defend their faith. So I think that we as parents have to choose ministries too that are specifically serving the needs of our children. But we also, the thing I talked about with the parents today, if you're kingdom parenting, means that as a parent, our role is to raise holy offspring. But we can't raise holy offspring if we're not holy. So if we're out here with the turn up culture and the 50 is the new 40 and the 40 is the new 30 and we keep going on down the line and everybody is still searching for this youth and wanting to be friends with their children instead of disciplining them or teaching them the right way that they should go, this is where we're losing our generation.
You touched on something, and I don't know where I heard it from. It might be my very own pastor who calls it the unchurched generation, that we are part of the unchurched generation. Like for us, going to church was mandatory. It wasn't no, yeah, I want to watch cartoons today. No, we going and we might go 5 times this week. And it's revival season for the people who don't know in the South. So it's church going on 5 days this week. And if you were, especially raised by grandparents, you were going. But I think, and we talked about this on a lot of different shows, like some of the things we saw that we disagreed with. Now, as parents, we don't enforce them because we felt like we were being forced to do them, like having our kids go to church all the time. Because I see a lot of times, even our church, that parents are there, but the kids are at home somewhere. And I think that's just a new generational thing. And Dr. Houston, you brought up something else. Let me say this again. I want to thank everyone for watching Higher Definition and participating in this conversation. We were talking about current events, which is still current, the unchurched generation and defending our faith. But Marlon brought it up, and I think Al brought it up, Dr. Houston brought it up. We can't defend our faith. And that's where you see, especially, and not so much in the South, but if you go north, our Islamic black brothers who will beat you to death with why Christianity is bad. And the problem we have is a lot of Christians only touch surfaces of scriptures without understanding the meaning, the context, where this happened at, which lineage a person came from. Al, do you agree with that? That we're just not great at defending our faith? Maybe we need to look back on how, especially in black churches, how Christianity or how Jesus is taught.
We're terrible. We're terrible at defending what we say we believe. It's because we don't even know. We can't even explain why we believe what we believe. We can't even do that accurately enough. And we would let me take a step back right quick. Um, we were talking about hymns and everything, and hymn songs, hymn choirs, and stuff like that in old school church. One of my favorite hymns, one particular part says, "To serve the present age, my calling to fulfill." And we have to learn as the church how to truly serve the present age. Today's kids will always have one of these in their hands at all times. They will always have technology at their ready disposal at all times. It's always I mean, if they don't have their phone, they got a tablet or iPad or a video game controller. They have some form of technology at their disposal, immediate access at all times. So why aren't we as the church giving them the word, giving them Jesus, giving them what they need, what we know they need in those forms where we know they're going to have access to it? But we're still expecting them to just come and sit in a boring church, doing a boring service where there's the same 5 or 6 scriptures read every Sunday or every year or every, this time of year, the same thing. It's the same circle, vicious cycle of the church system that's, failing not just us, it failed us as well as we were growing up, in a lot of ways, but it's failing even more so our kids, grandkids. And we got to get to a point where we're truly serving this present age.
Marlon, do you think we'll do a good job defending or understanding how to defend our faith? Because I also now understand a lot of scriptures that I know and was putting in certain contexts. It's not in the right context, and it's not how it was meant when it's not meant that way. And we've just used it because it sounds snappy to say in that moment. Do you think we need to revisit this?
Oh, most definitely. And I agree with a lot of the points Al stated as well. And that's what I've tried to do as an adult a little more, even when my wife and I do Bible study daily and things like that, try to look at particular things that even scriptures that we were, taught coming up, and you just took them at, surface value. You never scratched it. You never tried to look beneath it. It's just whatever the pastor said, it was what it was. I think even Pastor Maddox was talking about and I forgot the actual sermon, but where he went out and got the fish, and the fish was overloaded in the boat and stuff like that. And it wasn't even about the fish. He left the fish. And listening to other sermons like that, I was just like, man, it wasn't really even about that. It was just showing that he was qualified. So for something like that even if he hadn't stated that, it was on me to not just allow another man to be able to tell me his version of that. Just like your pastor said, Lamont, don't trust him. What I'm saying? Trust the word. It's on us to study that. It's on us to continue to look over those and try to find meaning and value for that. And, to have those sessions, if you can, with your family. And just like Al talked about too, the phones, iPads, all that technology isn't going anywhere. So we do have to find other ways to reach them than some of these traditional ways that the youth don't relate to at all. And do you have to be extreme sometimes? Hey, I mean, look at Kirk Franklin. Everybody was a naysayer, didn't think that brother was going to make it when he started doing what he was doing, all the gyrating, the dancing, using, current tracks that, we used to jam to in the clubs, what I'm saying? But, look at how many he reached just being radical. So sometimes, it takes that, and you're going to have some people that say, oh, that's not right. And, and all of us know on this panel, Kirk is not a traditionalist, right? He pretty much kind of changed the face of gospel with some of the things that he did. But I think in our homes and things like that, like Al stated, we have to find a way to reach them. But at the same time, we have to be educated enough to defend our faith. And even talking about that as well, Lamont, I even look on social media now. I was telling my wife the other day, I was just surprised at the amount of non-believers that we have that look like me. It's just so surprising that, a lot of people pick at others for
talking about God. Somebody, put in the chat the other day, hey, just pray about it, and another brother came in, pray to who? Your God, this, da da da, and it just got to, and I was just like, wow. And it wasn't just him, it was thousands of comments, y'all, to where, we have a lot of people that just are non-believers. And how can we overcome that?
Dr. Houston, and I commend you for what you're doing, putting your kids in a spot where they're being taught biblically and you're living it out. But go ahead. It looked like you were about to say something.
I was when I talked to the youth today, what Mr. Boyd talked about with the providing them with things that are online. So our youth spend about 5 hours a day on social media of some form, YouTube or something. So you're right. If we don't meet them where they are, we're never going to reach them. So I gave them two things that I put into the private chat. If you want to copy them and put them in the comments, Lamont. Pastor Jerry Flowers, his ministry is out of Houston, Texas. I don't know if you all are familiar with him, but he teaches things that are very relevant to what's happening in the lives of young people and young adults. A lot of things that the church kind of skirts over, or is only surface level on. He really delves deep into that, and he has several series. One of them is a Therapy Thursdays, and he also has one about trauma, where a lot of what has happened with a lot of people who are not in the church, some people have experienced church hurt, where they have been damaged at church in some shape, form, or fashion. And it takes about 2 years to get over certain traumas. So, with that being said, if they don't know how to navigate trauma and then you experience the trauma at the church, sometimes it's harder to get back to that. But the YouTube link, their ministry is just phenomenal. I love their ministry in addition to our own church ministry. So I gave that to the students. The other resource that we give out at church is Right Now Media. Sometimes I'm from a generation where I think it used to be that you would call the pastor about just about everything. You know, Up their big toe. We got to call the pastor. You got to pray over the toe. Even though everybody knows how to pray, so I am not like that. So a lot of people in our generation, we like to navigate things ourselves sometimes. So Right Now Media is something that it gives you a lot of resources to scripturally navigate things, but it also gives things that are more not in the world as far as what you're watching on television. So it's kind of like a Netflix, but it's Christian oriented things. But they have things for children, for adults. So it really takes that temptation away of being so much like the world. But it's just another resource. And I think that's the other problem that we have. We ask people to do certain things. We ask them to not look like the world, but then we don't give them the resources for them not to do that. So as the church, we've got to get better about what are the problems that people are experiencing in the church. How are we helping people with addiction? How are we helping people determine whether or not you're really in love? What does the Bible say about the heart? We don't talk about stuff like that at church. People are figuring it out on their own. And I don't know if it's because a lot of people at the church may not know themselves, but we've got to get versed on what's happening with people, because if we don't know what's happening with them, we can't serve them.
No, it's deep what you're saying. And I think about me and Everett go round and round talking about these types of subjects. Even some of the teachings of the Bible, we can't be afraid of them. Like,
Mhm.
David had his mistress husband killed. Like, we got to be able to talk about that.
Yeah.
But it also, the scripture says David was a man after God's own heart. We have to be able to explain that and not shy away from things like that. Growing up, and I'm just thinking out loud, When you talked about disciples, I'm thinking about, man, these guys were growing up the way I was taught. These men were the most faithful, upright guys who would never leave Jesus. Well, the scripture tells us when he was crucified, they hid, that he had to come in the mix of them to show. And if you even logically think about the story of when Jesus was crucified and they went to the tomb, the women went to the tomb, but the only reason you would go to the tomb if you believe or did not believe that he had risen. Like, we have to put things in context, that he had told them he wouldn't be there. And I know if my brain thinks like that, our youth, but we have to be able to logically walk these things out and talk to them by faith. And a lot of the conversations or a lot of the stories in the Bible are faith, that you're still being obedient. Al, am I off base, or is it a little bit more simpler than that?
No, you're not off base. I mean, the thing about it is, our kids right now are being attacked on a spiritual level that we just don't even have the aptitude to be able to teach them about it, because we weren't taught about it, and we've never looked into it for ourselves. And I honestly believe in a lot of ways that today's church as it is right now is about 30 years behind, as far as how it addresses the public, how it addresses certain apologetics and different subjects about really understanding the word. We're about 30 to 40 years behind, and I say this with all respect and honesty and sincerity. If I come to visit your church and you still handing out envelopes, and that's the only way that I can give in your church, then we're way behind. And I promise you, that's going to limit what I can give to you. Because if I got to sit here and tell you, do y'all have an app? Do y'all have Cash App? Do y'all have, or your PayPal? Is there a link that I can, well, then I don't have but a few dollars in my pocket. So I'll give you these few dollars because I don't carry much cash. I mean, just simple things like that. We're still in 2024. You still have churches that just refuse to even just get a simple Facebook page. A simple Facebook page, and then you got those that have a Facebook page but never do anything with it. It's not interacting or anything like that. But we really got to do a better job, and we got to stop this, man. At some point, we really got to stop just shooting down new ideas just because it's different than what I mean, always doing. We know that definition. Always doing what you've always done is they call it a definition of insanity. You're expecting a different result. I spoke with someone on a church here recently, and they told me that we want more youth in the church. We really want more youth here in the church. And I'm like, okay, well, what are you doing about it? What are you doing about it? What can you show me that you do as a church right now that's welcoming, or that the youth can be involved in, but you're just focused on having church the same way you've always had it for 100 years, or however many years your church has been in existence. Even if you're a newer church, a church that's only been in existence, for under 20 years, you still have to move forward. You still got to move forward. You got to be forward thinking. And we have a God, and just because the Bible says that Jesus Christ is the same today, yesterday, and forevermore, that's not what it's talking about. It's talking about his nature, his character. Jesus' ministry here on earth was on the move. It was on the go. He never did the same thing he never did the same thing the same way twice. His methods would change from one town to the next, from one village to the next. His ministry was mobile. His ministry was, he met the people where they were. He didn't and a lot of people might, they don't realize his whole thing was tearing down the traditional way of thinking, because they were limiting themselves and still in bondage because of their, way of thinking and thinking that it has to be done this way every time, and it has to be done that way. You can't do this on the Sabbath. You can't do that. You can't do this, that, this. And Jesus was like, look, all of that stuff is fulfilled in me. So if I say it's okay, it's okay. And so we're so behind, and we really gotta stop shooting down new ideas and fresh thinking. Ridiculing the fresh thinking when they come into the congregation. We'll run people right back out of the church. When they come in and introduce a new idea.
And Marlon, we talked about this today after church, and we talked about it before pre-show. Like, to be able to be forward thinking, and Pastor Francis does speak of having the front door of the church open and the back door. Like, you're getting people in, but you got people going right back out the back door because you have nothing for the youth to do. You don't have enough ministries to take. Like, the days of just having one mission fund or one is over. Like, there's so many different needs. Marlon, how do you, from a church standpoint, especially when our youth, because the youth are the bloodline of the church, what do we need to do better there? Because Al touched on some things, Dr. Houston touched on some things. What is the forward-looking church looking like?
That's a tough question, brother. And I piggyback to even what Al stated. A lot of times as churches, just like Al said, they told him, we want to get the youth in. Hey, but what's your plan? Yeah. Who doesn't want to attract the younger generation? I think it starts with, of course, family, even if you target, and not saying you can really truly do this, but like single mothers, that come to a lot of the churches, with the children. I think that any parents that come there have to feel like it's a safe space. Another thing, like we talked about as well, is, social media. How is your church marketing themselves to show that they aren't, traditional, in a sense to where it's going to attract the youth? Youth don't, and adults, none like to be judged. Hey, if I want to come to church with a t-shirt on and some, jeans and sneakers,
you was on track until you start talking about, listen here, we need to have 3-piece suits on with hard bottom shoes. But go ahead, Mark.
Yeah. Am I going to be stopped at the door, by Mother Davis and saying, hey, boy, what you got on? You need to go back out to the car and change, and I think the biggest obstacle we probably would have or to be able to let the youth know that, you won't be judged. There won't be any issues. Just come in. We just want you to be there. We want you to get the word. But once we get you in, we want to have something in place that's going to keep you. Like you said, front door, front and back door open. How many times, Lamont, we have opportunities we have as a church when you have visitors or have a new family come in and may have, 2 children or 1 child, single household. And we don't take that opportunity to follow up, grab them right then and there in the church, find out about them, not even about, not even more focusing on, oh, you're going to be returning again. Or, what I'm saying, when you going to come back and see us? Who are you? Where are you from? What interests do you have? Who's your family? Oh, this is your daughter. What grade are they in? Just doing life. And then letting them know, hey, if you all do decide to come back, this is what we have to offer as a church. And not even just through communicating face to face, but, those links like y'all put in the chat, hey, you get an opportunity, check us out. I'm saying? Look at this. And then what are we doing as a church that shows that we are youthful in certain ways versus, like Al said, that stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down, pray, go to the choir, benediction, go home, or everybody showing up because y'all got the big piece of chicken y'all serving today. But what do you get? What did I get out of that? What I'm saying? Versus checking that box off. And I think that's what we got to get past is making, it more of an experience versus just being able to say on Monday, yeah, man, I went to church. Because I was one of those people, what I'm saying? So I think we have to dove into how do we make that experience? How do we connect with them? And I don't think it's one foolproof answer to it. But I think if we get away from tradition and show that we are, marketable and reaching out to the youth, I think that would make a difference.
Dr. Houston, it sounds like you go to a wonderful church. I'm amazed at how many people go to church. You never know the name of church they go to. Like, they never talk about the experience of their own church, which tells me, do you like your church? Do you dislike your church? Or am I missing something, Dr. Houston?
It's a checkbox. That's why.
Yeah, well, I talk about Steel Creek Church of Charlotte a lot. Now, I grew up in the Baptist church, so I've seen both sides of it. Steel Creek is a non-denominational, multi-ethnic church. So we have a Hispanic service, we have an Arabic service. I go to the English service, but their resources. I have not been at a church before because I grew up in a small rural Baptist church. The resources are unheard of. It would not be able to happen at a small rural church. So what small or Baptist churches I think have to do, we have the setup is there because there's the Baptist Association groups. We just don't use them effectively. There is no way for a Black Rock Baptist church to be able to provide what Steel Creek provides. They have an addictions ministry. They have classes for 6 to 8 weeks to teach people how to live biblically sound financially. They support missions. We have churches in different countries where they are supporting the people that's going, fully supporting them with money. They have a program for first-time home buyers for people in the church. They are actually serving the people of the church, but you can't do that as a small rural church, but we could do that as a community. If Black Rock has the finance class, Union Baptist could serve the addictions people, but we got to be willing to collaborate. And then when you're talking about having your people go different places, you can't be territorial. So if we're really going to come together to serve the people of the community, we could do that as a network, but we all got to come together to do it. If we can't do it in a small church and offer what these larger churches are being able to offer, but it can be done.
Yeah, we're afraid to partner with other churches in things because we're thinking more membership as opposed to discipleship.
Right.
We're afraid that if we partner with this church over here and they have this and that we don't have, then they're going to start attending that church and their money is going to start going to that church. We're afraid to lose members. I'm more afraid to lose souls than I am afraid to lose members. I'll sit in an almost empty building if every soul in that building is right with God before I sit in a full jam-packed building and there's all kind of demonic stuff going on and everybody going to hell except me. But I would rather make sure that everybody is whole as opposed to trying to hold them as a membership here in the dark and in the mess and they still got all kind of issues going on.
I'll make this statement. Like most, especially historical Black churches, are part of some association. They're tied together by some upper division, lower division. It's a sham to me because if we can't get together and share resources and share facilities, that like there's some churches that are small in association, some are larger, some have more teachers, some have more whatever. What is the use of the association besides swapping money? And you see this at revival time. And I know some older, more senior members of the church hate talking about this, but you're just swapping money. If you're at my church Monday and Tuesday, and I got to come to your church Wednesday, Thursday, the following, we just swapping money. We ain't shared the same $50 or $100 or whatever it is. I think we are missing the point. Like you might as well be in an independent church without a association, because what good is the association doing for you? It's not helping in any way if we just swapping money. Just a thought. I do, and this has been a powerful conversation we had, and it wasn't the direction we were originally going in. I have a serious but kind of a not serious question too. Before we do our wrap-up question or wrap-up conversation. How early is it to celebrate Christmas? I'm getting a lot of hate out here in these streets, and I'm not even sure where the hate is coming from. Some of my best memories of life are from Christmas. Marlon, am I missing something? Why I can't celebrate Christmas when I want to celebrate Christmas?
Man, you're a grown man. You know what I'm saying? You know, it's your house. So if you want to put up 6 Christmas trees in August, Hey, I say more power to you, brother. I know you already looking for the what's them Debbie snacks, the Christmas tree
Oh man, I
cakes.
can't wait till them Christmas tree cakes come out.
Yeah.
Oh my
So
goodness.
I'm surprised you ain't installed them permanent lights on your house yet, too. But I would say, man, you know, as far as that celebration, I do have good memories of Christmas, but I've always unfortunately been the more, you know, the last minute individual. Well, of course, I'll put the tree up November right after Thanksgiving, but I've never believed in going any earlier than that as far as decorations and things like that. And then even the flip of the end side of it, Lamont, you may want to ask this question as well. You know, when is there a time when you're supposed to take them things down? Because you know you have people that want to start Christmas early, but then you in the next year in March and April, and you still got Christmas lights coming on around your house, tree still sitting in the corner. So, what is that about, brother?
I see Everett Abel is and his family must be doing well. Hey Everett. Al, you gave that look. Now I ain't got that not direct conversation from this, and this is a serious part. But that indirect, that it's almost blasphemous that I talk about Christmas, that I even, you know, people gonna hit you with Jesus' real birthday wasn't in December anyway. And man, y'all a bunch of done haters. That's all that is. Am I misreading this out? Because some people, it don't matter what you say. And this to me is a bigger conversation. They finding some reason to poke holes at. If I want to eat Little Debbie cakes in October, who cares? Am I missing something else?
Jesus cares, but celebrate Jesus every day, all day, every day, Lamont. But as far as the holiday and the celebration and all of that, that's up to you. You can put your lights up, and now I remember when Boys and Men came out with their Christmas Interpretations album, right? Y'all remember that? Ever since then, I don't mind playing their Christmas songs all year long because I mean they have that type of feel.
Yeah.
It wasn't the traditional type Christmas thing, but um, for me, me personally, I don't get so deep into celebrating Christmas as I do celebrating Jesus and celebrating the fact that he came, you know, and the purpose why he came. But if you want to do the festive things, now my absolute favorite Christmas movie is Elf with with my guy Will Ferrell.
Foolish man.
That's my favorite Christmas. I gotta watch it, but I gotta watch it every year. But the one that I have to watch, the marathon of it. Y'all know I'm talking about Ralphie. Was it a Christmas Story?
Christmas Story.
They even got a part 2.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't like that, but you know, I'll watch that. You know, if I can find it, I'll watch it right now. But every year I'm going to watch that marathon. You know, but it's up to you. I don't. It's no big deal, man. If you want to, you know, put up your Christmas tree in July. It's August now. If you want to put it up now, go ahead and put it up. You know, I don't think it's gonna. I don't think it's gonna push you farther away or draw you or draw you closer to Christ by putting up your Christmas tree in the summer.
And Lamont, didn't you yourself say like that's kind of the most stressful time of the year? So I'm like, why would we want to push that even earlier than we have to? I think people overspend. They, you know what I'm saying? They pretty much put themselves in positions they shouldn't. And they don't even make it about Christ, of course. You know what I'm saying? All this gift giving and stuff like that, giving people things that you can't even afford to give just to look like Big Willie. But to me, it's like, you know, I think we lose the meaning of that. So I would say if you're celebrating for the right reason, it's, you know, it's all good. But, you know, when you get caught up into what it's turned into, you know, it could start people's year off horrible.
Bring back Christmas layaways too.
Yeah, well, yeah. I feel bad for them people who feel horrible about Christmas. Let me say that. But I think you can celebrate both Christ and Christmas at the same time. Man, there's people out here who celebrate their birthday for a whole month. And we don't say a thing. We don't say, hey, no, your birthday is on an actual date that you know. What are you talking about you celebrating the whole month? Go ahead, Dr. Houston. I'm sorry. How do you feel about celebrating Christmas early?
If you like it, I love it. That's my
Everybody
motto.
must love it then, because
Do you agree? Do you agree? It's a stressful time, Dr. Houston,
I think it is stressful.
depending on the individual, of course.
Yeah, depending on the individual. Now, I do. That's one of my favorite holidays. Christmas is, but that's because of the family togetherness. Everybody's going to each other's houses and eating together. So that's the part of it that I like, the family orientation part of it. But the tree, um, I now that my children are older, is not a big thing, or the decorations, but being together during family time and doing things together, playing games, that's the part of it that I like.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it when you want to do it.
I like the way y'all
That's
talking.
true.
I
And Lamont,
watched.
maybe you can get your ushers put some Christmas lights on their shoes. Maybe that'll be a new thing you can do for this year.
They so traditional. Marlon, you saw them big hats today. You know how we get down. Now, if you want to see a Christmas display at Christmas time, my church is hollies. I mean, man, them church mothers and went way out.
Wow.
Cloths are changed. It looks like a festive place. But they just got something against us starting us a little early. Like, let's push the envelope a little bit and start it a little early.
Do they take it down on time?
Yeah, we got a whole committee. Our senior members are not letting that linger into the new year, sir. That's probably bad luck and
Yeah,
blasphemous.
before the
Well,
first of the year.
Well, I did see the day where your pastor was calling the singers to stand up. Ain't none of them really want to admit they were singing, so
Man, like 4 people stood up.
they ain't want to get up.
Church of
Maybe
like
they couldn't.
50 people, 4 people stood up talking about they singers. I'm like, interesting.
Maybe they couldn't get up. But hey, but Dollar Tree got up Christmas decorations, so you can put them up in your house now too.
But they ain't got the Christmas tree cakes. I mean, I did order some Christmas tree candles. Hopefully they'll be in soon, so I can start. They make the cakes out of a candle, and don't worry, I'll display them. No problems, man. We're gonna get that smell going, just like we about to eat them.
Dollar Tree might still have last year's cakes on sale for you.
Just check the date, right?
I want to thank everyone for watching, joining, even laughing with us. Having the man, it's tough out here. Like, we have to laugh and smile. I mentioned that this morning in church before I read the scripture that, man, the Bible speaks there's a season for everything. And, to plant, to sow, to rest, to work, to harvest, and also to laugh, to be joyous. Like, I think the world stresses are going to get us. Let's figure out a way or a reason to smile and laugh. And a lot of people have been through so much. Like, smiling and laughing was needed. Like, you can't solve their financial issues. You can't solve their medical issues, but you can bring smiles and joy to people. And I try to do that. Y'all know I laugh about anything. I am not a person you want to sit next to at a funeral or any serious event, because I'm but I can turn on the top of and talk about fighting. So I'm probably not the best person to be like, if you approach me and I'm talking and laughing, then I'm upset that you upset, and it's going to be another problem. So I'm probably not a great person. That's why Everett try to stay away from me most of the time. But in our final comment, Mr. Boyd, and I meant to say, and maybe everyone has picked up on this, Minister Al Boyd. And I have such great relationships with Pastor Ed, Pastor Hedgepath was on. A lot of the ministers that come on, it seems as natural because we're friends first, not the title of our friendship. So any final words from you?
I just want us to rethink how we think, because a lot of the stuff that we talked about, tonight, even though it wasn't a formal format or anything like that, we have to go back and really just kind of re-examine how we think about certain things. I think that goes across the board with everything that we talked about.
I really appreciate that. And I was reading this comment, and I thank you for watching. Latoya Thompson, you got a long list, but I didn't see the mention of my Christmas topic on here, so I don't know what. I'm not sure what was going on with that, but we thank you for watching and that you know thought we had some good topics tonight. But the Christmas one for me was the most important one. Dr. Houston, any final words, man?
I agree with Minister Boyd that we've got to change things because tradition is killing us in school as well as in the church. And those are the places where we have the potential to make the most impact that it's not happening. And then also that we have got to stop. We've got to start making sure that as the African American community, culture is killing us. Everyone wants to look a certain way, but that way is not the way of Christ. So we can't be the turn up culture. We can't be the turn up queens and kings. Those are not the kings and queens that God developed us to be. We've got to be about finding what our purposes are in life and making sure that we are helping our children figure out what their divine purposes are. Because what I've left the children with today is that the devil's job is to kill, steal, and destroy. And the main way he does that is by taking your mind. So that's why we see so much of the anxiety, the depression, the trauma. Because if your mind is focused on all of these other things that's happening to you, how are you ever going to see God's face? It's not going to happen. So we've got to make sure that we are equipping people with what they need to navigate life, or else those purposes will never be discovered and God's kingdom won't be built the way that it needs to be.
No, thank you for saying that. One of the deep conversations, arguments me and Everett used to have is he used to say, man, this stuff is spiritual. We're under spiritual attack, spiritual warfare. And I'm like, nah, people just idiots. People just not thinking things out. And he was like, nah, this is spiritual attack. And we had this conversation a lot during COVID when you took smart people who just was coming up with 1,000 conspiracies and really believing them. Not like they didn't believe what they were saying. Like, nah, this person's too smart to believe this and that. And it's other things when you start talking about in the political realm or you start talking about the education of our kids, like, no, that's a spiritual attack. So I would say to Everett, I was probably wrong on that front, that I do believe that we are under spiritual attack and we have to guard against that. And our younger minds are susceptible to that stuff. And before I throw it to Marlon uses the term kings and queens a lot. I see him when he posts people's birthdays and stuff. I'm not as loose using that because I see a lot of foolish behavior from our kings and queens. Like, you in the club every week, you got a 40 in your hand.
I'm gonna still call them that despite of what it looks like, sir.
Okay.
I'm speaking that into their lives.
They are, exactly. Amen. I was clapping Lamont because you was admitting that you was wrong. That don't happen a lot.
Yeah, this is being recorded.
It doesn't. I'm gonna definitely go back and look at this.
Ever got the right wording that I use? Let's get this straight. But Marlon, any final remarks?
Yeah, I would say, I think we have to understand, is like Al talked about, rethinking and changing the mindset, is that we have a lot of power ourselves in our homes. Church is important, but it's going to start at home. We can't even depend on the church to do everything. I think Dr. Houston talked about prior where, that's where a lot of church hurt comes from. I've seen situations to where someone they broke their pinky toe and pastor didn't show up. And now they're disappointed and want to leave the church because, they're human. They can't be everywhere at all times. And you have to understand that power lies within you. We're called upon to make sure that our youth are brought up right, that they're taught the word and that they're instilled in with those things that's going to help them go out into this crazy world and be able to navigate some of the things that, some of the pitfalls that we fell in. Even today, Lamont, at church, like I talked about, a lot of nostalgia when y'all had the youth come out, the young ladies come out and, do the praise dancing and things like that. Having someone to be able to take time with them at this young, tender age that they are, where they're so impressionable, they have so many temptations out in the world, for them to be able to have those youth to stick together to learn a routine to a gospel song, you know what I'm saying, in front of a crowd, when you could have even your peers judging you. Oh, why are you doing that? Why are you dressed up like that? You know, you don't know what they're maybe coming up against for them even making the decision to go forward with that. I remember being younger, being in the Boy Scouts, you know, marching in a parade with the church. My peers used to give me heck. Even being in the choir singing opera songs and stuff like that that I would never be exposed to. I remember singing at a graduation, and afterward, you know, my peer like, "What, y'all? You sounded weird. What was that about?" But for me, once again, the power lies within us to make sure that our youth are taught the right way to be able to navigate themselves right in this world. And I think, you know, yeah, the church is a resource for that. But I think we depend on too much. If you go to church, they can teach you all of this, and I'm out of it. And that's not that. It doesn't work that way. So I would say, you know, anyone that's watching tonight, just know that you have the power. You don't have to depend on your pastor to teach some of the same things that he's going to stand up in the pulpit and talk about to your family. You can do so at home and make sure that they're set up and in the full armor of God when they walk out into this world, man, because it is crazy out here. And even when we talked earlier, Lamont, you know, you talked about some people not keeping up with current events. I remember even when the COVID epidemic started, the pandemic started, and I was, you know, I had turned off the TV myself because I couldn't take looking at it anymore. And I didn't want to keep up with current events because I was getting so depressed at looking at what direction or what's going on. I felt like I was watching a movie, you know? So with that, I say all of that to say, man, you know, the power is within us, and we can't be lazy about it. We have to be intentional when it comes to our family and our youth.
No, and the word tells us to study to show ourselves approved. And I think it's the same crutch you mentioned for the church goes for the school. We can't expect teachers and administrators to get our kids to some outstanding level if we're not pouring anything to them at home, or providing a safe environment for them at home, or making sure their study habits are good. Like, it's never going to work that way. And where you see this play out at is in your job. Like, you can tell the kids that probably struggle, or the young people that struggle with study habits, concentration, attention to detail, follow through, like the skills that were going to take you very far in this world. Discipline, even basic discipline, to show up on time, not to be late, to talk in proper manner. So we have to do a better job. So I want to thank everyone for watching, listening, joining. Our conversation took on a life of its own, and I really appreciate that, because we have a lot of different guests and a lot of different people that come on, and having real conversations with them is very important. Like, you know, there's not a lot of times you're going to sit around a Dr. Houston or Al Board or Marlon and have conversation, but sometimes just listening to other people talk their way through how life is for them gives you a little insight that you're not alone in this world, that you're not alone in the struggles of the things you see, how you feel. And especially as men, and talking about our feelings, is taboo, and it hurts us deeply. It really hurts us and puts us back, that we're suffering in silence. Um, and, and I do want to say in closing, I've said this now for 3 straight shows. I said it last Sunday night. I said it this morning. Men, we look good. We look good, and we need to be proud of that. Women come on here and they just know they look good. We should be able to tell each other we're handsome, we're looking good, and we should feel good about that. So I just want to boost our self-esteem, and say we're looking good, man. And, you know, Dr. Houston, you know, women ain't got no problem telling each other they look good, or girl, you fine. None.
That's true. That's true. We don't.
But men, we struggle. We don't want to say it. We don't want to have that queasy feeling. So with that, I would say, men, you looking good. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, but I ain't gonna tell you
Thank you,
the
sir.
same thing.
Same to you, sir.
It's good to laugh. Laughter is good for us. With that, I'm going to say have a blessed and safe week, everyone. Be safe. COVID is at its highest level since 2022. So a lot of us probably know someone right now with COVID, just the way it's spreading so fast. So please protect ourselves, especially as we get into these cooler months, because it's scary out there, and people's reaction to COVID, you just never know how it's going to affect you. First time might have been hard, second time was soft, and the third time puts you in the hospital. So please be safe, be careful. And with that, I'll say have a blessed night. Thank you, Dr. Houston. Thank you, Al. Marlon, as always. Everett, we're praying for you and your family. We can't wait on you to return, and a special prayer for your wife. And with that, we'll say have a great and blessed night.